Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News, and I'm Faisal Rehman, live from our Islamabad studios. Today we'll be talking about the impeachment of none other than the President of the United States of America, Mr. Donald Trump. Now, the House of Representatives, they have, in fact, they have given a summary. Now, this is going to be heard in the Senate. Now, the interesting part is that when we talk about the Senate, that is going to be having the Chief Justice of the American court there, and practically speaking, the Senate will become a court itself. So if any decision is taken against Mr. Donald Trump, he will be not only impeached, but he could be imprisoned also. Now, but having said that, since they need 2/3 majority or 67% of the total votes in favor of the impeachment in the US Senate. Now, that seems to be pretty impossible because the number of members out there, they are in fact favoring Mr. Donald Trump in that regard. But having said that, what sort of a political fallout it is going to have, what sort of an impact it is going to have on the campaign for the next elections as far as Republicans are concerned or Mr. Donald Trump is concerned, how will it affect his political career? That is something again important. If you remember earlier, there was this very, very famous scandal, Watergate scandal, in which President Nixon in fact resigned after that. He was impeached. And then we talk about another case where the president was not impeached, but he had to come up openly and had to admit what he did, and he had to say sorry for that. That was Mr. Bill Clinton, and I'm talking about the Lewinsky, Monica Lewinsky case. But other than that, let's see how it moves forward. But it is some very interesting times ahead, I would say, in the US politics. Let me also explain this. Now, the House votes on articles of impeachment. So, it is recommended now. Simple majority, 51% support impeachment. Less than a majority support impeachment. So now, if less majority supports, Trump remains in office. Trump is impeached and the trial begins in the Senate. Now, that's the second case. After the trial, the Senate votes on whether to convict the president. If the president is convicted and 2/3, that means 67% of the votes go against him, then the President of the United States of America, Mr. Donald Trump, will be removed from his office and Vice President Mike Pence will take over. But if it doesn't happen this way, less than 2/3 of the Senate vote, they support Mr. Donald Trump, then Trump remains in office. Now, this is the basic summary, but we'll be talking about it in detail in our program today. Let me also introduce you to our panelists. We'll be talking to Mr. Rauf Hassan Saab, who's a senior analyst. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Rauf Saab will be talking about this in detail with you, and we'll be also joined in by Dr. Umar Hayat Basit Saab, who is a senior foreign affairs expert, and we'll be also talking to Begum Saida Abida Hussain Saiba. She's former ambassador, former minister also. But starting off from you, Rauf Saab, now this is something pretty interesting. Now, Nancy Pelosi wants that this bill, which is supposed to be presented before the Senate, needs to be delayed because she believes that currently, if they do it on ASAP basis, it won't be functional. So they're just preparing some ground in the Senate, most likely in the coming days or something. This is what it seems like. But generally speaking, 1,500 lies from Mr. Donald Trump. That is actually his personality also, part of it. Where do you see this mess heading now, sir? Do you think he's going to get the clear jet from the Senate, or something can happen as well? This is United States of America at the end of the day, sir.
At stake are two things. Number one, whether President Trump is removed or he continues in office. But far more important than that is how will this impact his chances of re-election for another 4 years?
Absolutely.
And that is what we should be debating, actually. We should be discussing that. So, this impeachment process was delayed. The initiation of the impeachment process in the American House of Congress was delayed. The House of Representatives was delayed because there were two opinions within the Democratic Party also. They did not want President Trump to accrue any benefit from a failed attempt to remove him in the American Senate, which is the likelier thing to happen because Trump has a majority there, Republicans have a majority there. So since the voting in the House of Representatives has virtually taken place along party lines, so it is likely that it will also take place along party lines in the US Senate. That means he will not be convicted, he will not be removed, so he will stay in office. Now, President Trump being President Trump, the fact is that he will try his level best and his party will try his level best, their level best, that they gain from this failed attempt on the part of the Democrats, to remove him, because the ultimate objective was to remove him, not just to impeach him. It was to remove him. Likely scenario is that he's not going to be removed. So, in the first instance, it was Nancy Pelosi actually, who stood against moving the impeachment resolution earlier on. So she delayed it by about 4 or 5 months to build a consensus within the party. So once she was sure that everybody, was on board, and they agreed to move the impeachment motion, which was of course easily passed in the House of Representatives. But now is the test case for the Democrats. There's a consensus within the U.S. that President Trump is not the best of presidents. But then this is not the case with virtually with his specific clientele, his specific vote bank. They still believe that he is virtually God on this earth. So
Trump is basically
that's right.
blaming the Democrats and saying that they are playing a very negative role and they are doing whatever is against the will of the US voters.
But no, that is not it. See, because this is not the first time. This is the third time that a president has been impeached, and it is part of the U.S. Constitution simply because it was meant to be used, as if the House of Representatives felt that the president was bypassing the American Constitution or was in breach of the American Constitution, then it has this constitutional right to move against him. So it's saying that that is the case. That is not. I don't think that fits there. So that does not. But the other factor is that will this failed attempt to remove him, will this be of benefit to Trump to return for another 4 years? And that, I think, is
the
what
actual question.
Was also the reason why the Nancy Pelosi has delayed the introduction of the bill in the Senate, because they must be working on the Republicans.
And I'm sure they need some time to do that.
And
that is
possibly
going to
trying
be
to get them on board so that
and Trump doesn't have much time left either.
He
the
does
next
not have
elections
it.
are right
And the
around
Democrats
corner.
also do not have a lot of time, by the way.
And plus, it's the American
the next election is
where
barely.
people do have a very great way to support or to oppose anything. I mean, they do it on merit.
That's right.
Besides obviously the political support needs to be there. The support of your own political party has to be there. But at the end of the day, anything can happen. Sir, we have been joined in by Begum Abida Hussain Sahiba, the former ambassador to United States of America. Assalamu alaikum, ma'am.
Assalamu alaikum.
Ma'am, thank you very much for talking to PTV World and taking out your time and being a part of our show, ma'am. First of all, your take on today's development regarding the impeachment of the President of USA, Donald Trump, ma'am, in the House of Representatives. How to move forward now? What do you see ahead, ma'am?
Well, you see, the impeachment procedure is very complicated, and it's very unlikely that it will result in this motion being carried. So my thought is that President Trump is likely to continue, and if he survives the impeachment motion, he will have been strengthened. So this would benefit him for his election as second-term president.
So you believe that this is going to benefit, but ma'am, what if, let's suppose, because when you're talking about that the president is lying, he has earlier lied, and he's been involved in this, and he hasn't been very open and transparent with the public. Do you think that is also going to expose so many of his fault lines, ma'am? People would know about it, could actually negatively, become something which could result in his failure in the next election, ma'am? Is there any possibility of that
yes,
as well?
You see, anything is possible. Politics is the art of the possible. And so I don't rule out anything, but I do feel that the chances of his being impeached in effect are somewhat remote.
All right. Ma'am, another important point that I think you should also throw light on is about the past, ma'am, whether you talk about Richard Nixon or you talk about Mr. Bill Clinton. Ma'am, we have seen that obviously people follow the overall ideology of their political party. They always follow that, okay, well, this is what the Democrats want, this is what the Republicans want. I mean, there's like a division in the thinking also. But ma'am, since America is one of the democracies, I mean, that is an example and a half throughout the globe, ma'am. Do you
Yes,
see
this is
something else happening, ma'am? Maybe some people do not like Donald Trump. There are a lot of divisions within the Republicans also, ma'am. Do you think that can be exposed by the Democrats, or in particular by Nancy Pelosi, ma'am?
I think that it certainly it can bear that result. But at the same time, as I said earlier, I really do not think that it's going to, the impeachment motion is going to be carried. And if it's not carried, then naturally this goes some distance in helping President Trump to be re-elected.
All right, ma'am. Thank you very much for your comments, ma'am. Thank you very much, Baisab, for being a part of our show, sir. Earlier, we were just having a word about the fallout factor of this decision on the political career of Mr. Donald Trump, or could be for the upcoming election now. Begum Abdul Sen as well as Mr. Rauf both believe that since the Senate is very much in their control, and if you look at the previous pattern, what we have witnessed earlier in the House of Representatives, if it follows the same pattern, there's nothing which is going to go against Mr. Donald Trump, sir.
See, I would partially agree with them, but the point is there are two serious questions. One is it's about American democracy, and that brings us to a situation what we can term it as a deadlock, whether we call it a political deadlock or a legal deadlock. That you were trying to impeach a president not one time, two times, three times, four times, and you're still unable to impeach the president. That raises very serious question on the constitutional problems that exist within the United States. And they're not amending their constitution. They're just redoing what they've been doing even then, even though they know what's going to be the outcome of this entire impeachment episode. Two, I would agree, nothing's going to happen. Trump is going to stay in power one more time. What next? It's about the American democratic process. First, I was explaining about the legal deadlock or the constitutional problems that exist within the United States. Now I'm referring to the democratic process or America as a democracy. Now, I would term it as a binary authoritarian regime where you have just two choices. It's either Democrats or Republicans. And then we first claim as the word superpower and as a democracy, but in its true spirit, it's authoritarian regime. And then they come and criticize about China for being too authoritarian. It is unitary authoritarian regime. Talk about the ways that they can fix their problems in 21st century. Now, it's a post-truth word. In post-truth word, you can deceive people. You can try to do any kind of jingoism. You see what's going on in different parts of the world. Fair enough. It tells, or it will actually now, it's a point to think for American intellectuals and American legal experts to think little more on American ideas. So if I agree with them, legally, he will not be impeached. He'll be acquitted. The question, how about principally, morally, and ethically?
You think so these things do matter in the politics in today's world?
You know, that's exactly
Because it's more about
what
numbers.
I'm
2
saying.
plus 2 is 4. Simple as that.
Post-truth word. These things don't really matter. But then are we not going to think about the alternative of democracy? Are we not doing the same things over and over again, and that's going to push us towards a deadlock? that we have construed or we have conceptualized a democracy, and its true spirit is actually not a democracy, but that leads even the superpower, United States of America, in a political deadlock. So how they're going to go through and get through
Quick
that
comment now.
deadlock?
So, there's this chart, Faisal, and it says, well, if this happens, this is what the formula is. If this happens, 51% after all, you take it to the Senate, 67%. How long normally does it take, sir, to complete the whole process in the Senate? Normally,
there is no
there's
standard.
no time. It is not
there is no
time bound.
standard. No,
Okay.
It depends on what's on the agenda. It depends on what they want to do in Senate. Now the point is, there is a possibility that he can be convicted and impeached.
Let's talk about that. And what is that possibility?
That possibility is addition of witnesses in the hearings in the Senate. If they're able to bring in few more witnesses, which Democrats want, then there is a possibility that this can actually change the state of mind by the statements or even the evidences given by the witnesses. There is a possibility that some Republicans can change.
The highest court in USA will be sitting and will be monitoring,
Yes.
and will be listening to whatever is happening out there, sir, and he is going to make the final judgment, correct?
True. Senate becomes the court.
Now, what if he believes, forget about the Senate, whether they, because obviously the general trend is that they're going to support the president, Republicans, but if the number is not 67%, sir, still the judge believes that he should be convicted, then
it has to be through voting. Even then,
his own decision doesn't make any difference.
The judge is going to chair the session. He is the president of the court. The decision has to be by the voting. And the voting is going to determine. Yes, but here's the thing, let me tell you, we don't have to take impeachment so seriously as if they're actually going to impeach. They know what's going to be the outcome. They know what's going to be the result. But for Democrats, Trump's impeachment, now this will take us to another debate, and that's what I want to talk about more. This is for Democrats a political campaign. They're not serious in impeaching Trump, trust me.
But Rauf Saab, earlier when we were having a word with Begum Abida Hussain, she was of that view that, let's suppose if he is not impeached, that is going to favor him in the next elections. Do you agree with that?
He has been impeached. He may not be removed. These are the terms from the Constitution of the U.S.
Okay, there is a difference. We need to understand. Okay.
He stands
in the
impeached.
House of Representatives,
He has been impeached.
True.
So he is an impeached president today. But the removal is something that comes before the Senate. So they have to decide whether he's going to be removed from office or not. But the tag of impeached president is going to stay with them.
Yeah.
He's an impeached
This
president.
is, this has become a part of history now.
True.
He's going to carry it. He's going to carry it.
True. He is lost. Morally, ethically, politically, he has lost his battle.
Yeah.
In the House of Representatives. So if he wins in Senate, it will be based on numbers of Republicans in the Senate and full stop. That's it.
But sir, there's a very strong, it's not a rumor, I mean it's a reality, that within the ranks of the Republicans, there is a lot of division. A lot of people do not like Mr. Donald Trump.
Not even one person crossed the floor in the House of Representatives. It was along party lines. On the contrary, two of the Democrats absented.
Okay, they
absented. So, I don't foresee any division within the Republican Party at this stage. Much can happen, as you said, as we were discussing.
There could be personal differences.
Yeah.
But having said that.
But like we were discussing basically.
Sir, if you allow me, sir, my producer just told me to take a short break. Just take a short break, sir.
Let me just finish, please. I want to make a point here. Okay, after the break.
After the break, sir. We'll just take a short break here and then we'll continue our discussion.
Assalamu alaikum. I am Anjal Malik. Watch me coming Sunday at 8:05 on PTV World in conversation with Umar on Sky's the Limit. I'll see you there.
Welcome back after the Rav sir.
We were talking about the fact
You were throwing light on three major aspects primarily. So you were saying that since we can't, presidents have been impeached, there's the third one who's impeached, but there's a difference between impeachment and conviction. So there we
removal from office,
sir.
basically conviction, removal from office, which is handled in the Senate, basically. The important point here is, in addition to commenting on the system that is followed in America, which they have to work on, the question of whether a non-removal from office in the Senate is going to benefit President Trump politically. Is it going to damage the Democrats politically? Or will they be able to build it to a point that they win the next election and, don't allow him to get re-elected?
Do you think, sir, that the next election would really depend on this case, sir?
It is a very important factor. It's going to be a very important contributing factor to that. Now, I understand that, and you have also said in your opening remarks, that the Democrats, Nancy Pelosi, the Speaker of the House, is not interested in taking it to the Senate immediately, and that she's going to, give it some time. Yeah. During this time, obviously, the intentions are, number one, they will be working on the Republicans, and saying that, look, the president is in any case going to be from your party. It is going to be the vice president according to the American Constitution. He'll take over as the president. He said, this man has become untenable. His character and so much else about him basically is very controversial now. So, let's work together on removing him, and let the vice president become the president. So they're going to try to do that. The chances of this succeeding possibly, so far as I'm concerned, basically my appraisal is that no, it is not going to. Looking at the way people have voted, Republicans and Democrats have voted.
All along the party line, sir.
It's along the party line.
Yeah.
In fact, two Democrats, as I said, they have absented. So I think the Senate also, it is going to be along party lines. But if it works to the benefit of the Republicans and President Trump, who is going to be an obvious choice, for fighting the next presidential election in America, how will the Democrats be able to, or what steps, initiatives they will have to take to control the damage, to mitigate the damage, to keep it as low as possible? I feel that this is going to be the major issue. Like in the UK, it was all Brexit. So Boris Johnson read it right. Jeremy Corbyn was not able to read it right. So he came up with a welfare manifesto. People didn't even think about it. People didn't even talk about it. The voting in UK took place along Brexit and no Brexit lines. Similarly, in America, I feel that this is going to be a key component of the election campaign from both parties. See, if Trump wins, then he's going to say that, look, they were not able to impeach me, so it was a rancor, it was venom, and he's going to capitalize on that. And for Democrats, I think things may become a little difficult, because, now that they have moved, they've taken it further, I think it's important that they were able to finish it or take it to fruition, but which I don't think, is going to happen. So the next election is going to be all about Trump's impeachment.
So I think most likely, as you said, that there's a very high probability that he's not going to be convicted. Or
likely outcome is that he will not be impeached.
So most likely this means that
this
is going to have a very positive impact on the election campaign of Mr. Donald Trump for the second term, sir.
It will, but that's not going to be the sole single point in the political campaign, whether that is for Democrats or that is for Republicans. We can't
What about the promises he made?
We can't ignore Trump's economic agenda and his effort to kind of engage in a trade balancing with China, one, an increase in the paychecks of the common Americans. Do Democrats have that kind of economic agenda that can support them in the coming election? So it's not about, and let me tell you, it is going to be an important maybe, or one of the factors that can contribute and who is going to win, whether that is Democrats or Republicans, but that's not going to be the only one single agenda. But here's the thing, let me tell you. Let us say there is no impeachment inquiry. Let us assume there was no impeachment inquiry against President Trump. In that case, what would have happened? He would have won one more time. In this case, he would win one more time and he'll complete his 2 terms and say, bye-bye, that's it. And then there's going to be next. So it's not about, we are so overwhelmed with impeachment and we're taking it so seriously. It's not about impeachment. It's not about Republicans, how they're going to control the damage, or it's not about how Democrats are going to plan for their victory in the coming election. It is all about what United States of America is going to do in the future and how they want to see their future and where the United States of America is heading. This is the question. And this is where I see that the American democratic system and American legal system is heading towards its own denial or in a state where it finds no solutions of the problems which are inbuilt. And now these were never, no, this is very interesting, with the rise of right, and the political right I'm talking about, globally, even in the US,
it's all over.
they've highlighted those fault lines for the nation state system. And these are the serious fault lines that needs to be addressed. Is democracy going to give you the solutions of the serious legal problems or the economic problems or the social problems of different countries across the globe and the people living in those countries is a question. That needs to be addressed.
Now, Rauf Sahab, in the American election, I remember, because we as a journalist who's sitting in Pakistan and, observing the election campaign or so many other aspects in the United States of America, normally what we have witnessed that what is going to suit the rest of the world if this man is in the power or if he doesn't come into power. I remember when Barack Obama, almost 12 years ago, when he became the president, his manifesto included closing off Guantanamo Bay, Kashmir issue, if you remember. This AFPAC issue never existed. It used to be India, Pakistan and Afghanistan, but it was, curtailed to AFPAC. India was out. And then you talk about the Palestinian issue, the Iranian issue, sir, P5+1 during his, and then the sovereignty of America, and then he also hinted in calling back a certain number of American forces from the certain areas, like Iraq for that matter, that happened during his time. Now, sir, Donald Trump has said, okay, fine, you know what we'll do? Forget about the wall he wants to build with the Mexicans and, between the Americans. And he also, I remember, the Mexican president was due. I think he should have been the first person to visit the United States of America. But this man, Donald Trump, now is talking about business. Average pay raise, sir. People from the West, the white Americans supported him. The worker class supported him. Interestingly, what we have seen that this man is more focused towards states and he's looking inward. Obviously, it's the president of America. But sir, for the American public, if he is looking after the health issues or the educational issues for that matter, though he appointed a very wrong person with a so many $100 billion kind of money in their accounts, to look after the affairs of education, and not experience, no experience at all, not at all. What I'm saying is, sir, the domestic politics, they matter more to the Americans. Fox News matters more rather than the external policies of Donald Trump, sir. So sometimes when we view or when we look at his, all the right doings or the wrong doings, we look at it from a very different prism. The American public is actually happy from him, sir.
See, he went to the American people with a manifesto. And it has to be said to his credit that he has fulfilled most of the things that he put in that manifesto. And the American people have benefited on account of that. There is absolutely no doubt about it. And his standard clientele, his standard sort of vote bank, basically, I don't think there has been any breakup of that. It is still solid. It's solidly behind him. The important thing is whether Democrats are able to garner more people.
Hispanics voted for him, sir.
Yeah, that's right.
And he was totally against them at that.
For example, his policy in Afghanistan, President Obama said, that he was going to withdraw troops from Afghanistan. Unfortunately, he did not. As a matter of fact, he took the number up to 140,000.
Yes.
He increased. There was a upscale movement. There was not a downward movement. So he's the one basically who has downscaled American presence in Afghanistan. He's the one basically who initiated negotiations with the Taliban. Whether I agree with it or not is another thing, basically. But this is a step towards, American ultimate American pullout from Afghanistan. That again, I have my serious doubts whether they are going to actually pull out the last troop from Afghanistan. I think they will possibly try to maintain a level of presence there. But in any case, it definitely is directed, at bringing the fratricide in Afghanistan to an end. So these are good policies. There's something, and so, because of the fact that he was able to fulfill most of the things, that he has stated in his manifesto, those people who voted for him have redoubled faith in him. This is the way I look at it, basically. And if they benefited also because of that, to a certain degree, that means, that they will possibly be voting for him with added vigor. and commitment. So, now that the Democrats, are likely going to fail in their bid to remove him from office, that would have been a totally different scenario. Then he would not have been able to participate in the next election. But if he remains, he's going to, take part in the next elections, from the platform. And I still contend very strongly that this is going to be a leading factor, getting into the next elections. Of course, there's so many other things, that we have discussed. So I think his chances are very strong. So far as I'm concerned, I think, and most of the people that I've spoken to both here and in the US, they feel that, why is it that Nancy Pelosi was sitting on it for 4 months and he did not move the impeachment resolution before this in the House of Representatives? It was simply because there was a certain voice within the Democrats, who were worried about this prospect, that if we fail, and they knew that they're most likely they're going to fail, that we will be handing over advantage to the Republicans, and they will be able to exploit it. So basically, they delayed it. But then the eyes within the Democratic Party, they started asserting themselves. So at the end of the day, Nancy Pelosi had to concede, and they've now done it. Now the important thing is that if they take this to the American Senate immediately, the likely scenario would be that they lose. So part of the benefit, part of the advantage, would go to Trump. So they are going to deny that. So they're going to hold on to moving it in the Senate. Possibly they're going to delay it by a month, maybe even longer. So in this time, they are going to possibly work on various fronts so that they could increase the prospect, if not ensure, at least increase the prospect of them carrying the day, which I still believe is not the likely thing to happen. But amongst the presidents who have come to rule America, I think he is one person who has delivered on his manifesto more than any of the predecessors, that I remember. So
people can have personal disliking for him.
That speaks highly for the man, that he is a man of his word and he delivers on what he promises to the people of America, and they're happy about it.
And interestingly, when he was talking to the Prime Minister of Pakistan, Imran Khan, he said, well, once, I think it was in Japan that he mentioned that the Indian Prime Minister came to him and we did discuss about Kashmir, and I would like to be a part of the mediation. So that was something, obviously it was denied by the Indians, but I think this would have had happened. Now, sir, the reaction of the Russian president, you know what he says? He says Trump impeached for made-up reasons. Explain that, sir. The made-up reasons.
For made-up reasons, but what Trump actually, the entire episode of impeachment started with Trump's conspiracy theory and meddling, whether that was Russian meddling in the previous election or that was Ukrainian meddling in the previous election. So he was trying to...
If you remember, Sir, Rex Tillerson, who was made the Secretary of State, correct, sir?
Yeah.
Who resigned eventually, was very close to the Russian administration, correct? True. And everybody thought that there has to be some sort of a link. And then constantly, sir, if you look at it, Rausab, you said that he was the president, most likely who was committed to whatever he has said earlier. But sir, he was, I think, also one of those presidents during his initial first 6, 7, 8 months. Most of these top-notch appointments, which were given to so many people, most of them resigned. Most of the people resigned from the White House.
Continue to resign.
Everybody resigned. I mean, I still do not remember who is the current head of, I think it's Gina, Ma'am Gina, because John Bolton was made the National Security Advisor. So, female head. And then so many Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense, resigned.
Yeah, very true. No, what question you asked, how about the rest of the world and how they will have to deal with the Trump if he stays in power? I want to quickly comment about that. So they'll plan for next 4.5, 5 years and how they're going to deal with him. So his unpredictability is now predictable. That's one thing. And secondly, I want to tell you how the presidents work and how the entire White House administration works. So once there is a president, when he leaves, new president comes in and he brings his own team. So they start dealing with, partly they get support from different departments and all that, but they have their own way. The new president has their own way, his own vision, his own approach on how they deal on different matters, whether that is internal or that is foreign policy. So it's going to be that unpredictability is predictable and the rest of the world is going to plan on how they can deal with the president, and it's easy to handle with President
let's
Trump.
Suppose if President Donald Trump gets away, he gets away in a way that, nothing has been proven. Man was impeached but is not convicted. Good enough, wow. But sir, let's suppose during his second term, he wins the election and a certain, for example, issues are raised, those issues are much stronger than those on the basis of which he's impeached now. Can he be impeached again?
He can be impeached again. Yeah, why not? For n number of times he can be impeached.
Okay.
He can be impeached one more time next time. Or even if Joe
As
Biden
many
wins
times,
in, for example.
and he could be given a clean sheet from the Senate as many times.
No. Impeachment inquiry, you have to understand this. It's a long process. So it's not a business as usual that you can start impeachment
if
anytime.
he is able to
So
get away
there has to
from
be
this situation,
a reason.
but this can happen
no.
again, right?
Let me tell you. No. I mean, I'm not saying that he'll be impeached once he is cleared by the Senate this time. There will be another impeachment inquiry, and then
On other charges, other charges
no.
are framed against him, right? Then-
No. That's how is it going to give us a lot of time? Next year is election, so impeachment inquiry is a long process. It starts with the committees in House of Representatives, then it is voted in House of Representatives, then it moves to the Senate.
If the president is already impeached and there's another case against him, and that's an ongoing case, is eligible to contest for the elections?
There is an ongoing case against President Trump. Which case are you talking
No,
about?
let's suppose there's
Hypothetically, I think he should not be. It's about morality. It's about principally if he should contest or not. But I don't really know what is the legal stance. But there is no case against Trump apart from this impeachment inquiry.
No, there's
Is there
no
any?
case. And there's no bar in the American Constitution for a person. You see, unless you're
innocent
convicted,
unless
you
proven
are
guilty.
Yes,
proven guilty.
it's
It is
the
then
other
that
way
you cannot
around, yeah.
take part in the elections. Otherwise, he can continue to take part in the elections. So, but the problem is, important thing, see, there are going to be elections to a certain percentage of the Congress seats, and there are going to be elections, to a certain percentage of the Senate seats also, when the presidential elections take place. So, it will also be very interesting to look at
the equation,
in the new Senate and in the new Congress. It is possible that the Democrats may lose the majority in the Congress, in the Congress, or it is possible that they may gain majority in the Senate also.
Yeah.
So in that case, there is a prospect, and I don't know whether I don't. My information says that this thing can be brought back on the floor of the House of Representatives, and the impeachment process can re-begin once they have a thing. So this inquiry has already taken place, so they can once again lay down the articles of impeachment, and then they can take it to the Senate.
So
or they could do other things.
Nancy Pelosi is buying time now.
But the problem
Yes.
is that there's multiple other things of which President Trump is accused. For example, he's a tax defaulter.
Yep.
He's so much. He's
His
still
own
not
lawyer is in
shared.
jail now.
He's still not shared his tax details with the people, and now he has taken it to the highest court in America because the court ordered him to share it with the. And then during the course of these impeachment proceedings, he did not cooperate with the Congress at all. The subpoenas were rejected. Basically, none of the people who were subpoenaed they appeared before the Congress. So this in itself is a major issue that he absolutely did not extend any level of cooperation during the impeachment process. And now he's talking about the fact that he was not heard, or his point of view was not heard. The fact of the matter is that they invited him, they asked him, they subpoenaed his people, they asked him to come and present his side of the story before. It is he who abstained, who did not go before the Congress and did not allow his people to go before the Congress. So the fault is his. It doesn't lie with the impeachment process or with the Democrats there. So multiple things may happen. I fear that in case the Democrats win a majority in the Senate, I fear that this may come back to haunt him. And also hypothetically, if Trump wins the next election, which cannot be said for certain, he may not win the next election. That then, of course, would bring in a different scenario altogether. But if he wins the election, and the Democrats are able to,
can he be put on a trial if he doesn't win the election again, sir?
No, I don't think so. Not for this. For another.
Yes, he
Okay,
can be put on trial in the Supreme Court. Yes.
For another.
Pretty
He
interesting
can be
times,
put
yeah.
on trial.
Yeah, anyway, sir, you're.
No, I just
closing
wanted to
remarks?
say this, that, when we talk about, or when we try to understand impeachment inquiry, it sounds so funny, We know what's going to be the outcome, and we are still going through that process. So that tells us quite a lot about the American democratic system and American legal system. So it is for us, in fact, to understand that it's not the it's not a model of governance that we should look at and idolize as a model of governance. It has a lot of problems, inbuilt and inbuilt flaws. What is for us is, in fact, to understand this fundamental point is that that's not the ideal system of governance. Unfortunately, societies like Pakistan or so-called post-colonial societies, they look up to what's going on in the US, and when they don't find answers, they literally feel handicapped and they have nothing to say, and they feel like, oops, this is what it's going to happen, and they can't predict. So my point actually is that we have to understand from this impeachment inquiry as a lesson for us to come up with a system that is suitable for us. We learn from the example of the US.
Well, anyway, sir, thank you very much, Faisal. It was a pleasure having you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you so much
Very
for
kind.
watching the show, and that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you inshallah on Monday. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.